Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot, where we explore how to upgrade our lead generation. Today, we're exploring part of the social media landscape that B2B marketers should be leveraging more. First, I want you to tell me what you think of these author episodes, and you can get in on a fun little giveaway. If you're hearing this in the first half of 2022, all you have to do to be entered is to mention the hashtag marketingbooks, all one word. You can do it on Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn. I'll get you into the draw and you can be eligible to win. Now to today's episode. You want to get your B2B brand in front of your buyers. We all do. And you may like the kind of reach that social networks offer. Your buyers are certainly on those platforms, but you don't think they'll appreciate your content about serious business matters floating in front of them while they're lounging on their couch, catching updates from their friends. And you're probably right. But this is where one social network comes in, LinkedIn, specifically its company pages. And I hope you're one of the 50 million plus companies that have a company presence on LinkedIn. Our guest is here to talk about it because she helps businesses of all sizes use company pages to amplify brands and build up business credibility. She's a member of the SMB Advisory Council for LinkedIn Pages. She's a global LinkedIn Pages specialist who helps provide DIY LinkedIn training. She's also one of the top % of content creators on LinkedIn. She started using it for social selling around 6 or 7 years ago. She was just using the LinkedIn free tools available. But closing large deals that she knew through LinkedIn connections convinced her of its power. And she's branched out since to use it for marketing and as a trainer. In 2021, she and co-author Lanier Johnston came out with a book called Business Gold: Build Awareness, Authority, and Advantage with LinkedIn Company Pages. So now let's go and hear from Michelle Raymond. I'm very pleased to welcome today Michelle Raymond. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Hey, how are you? It's so exciting to be here. Get to talk about my favorite topic.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about, this is part of our marketing books series, and you recently came out with a book, and I'm going to let you say what it's about, but the name of the book is Business Gold, and the two middle letters of business are highlighted because, why don't you tell us why?
It's all about LinkedIn. So, how can you get the most out of company pages? So, it's about building awareness, authority, and advantage with LinkedIn company pages. So, we're super excited to get this out there because it's a world first. So, there is no other resource that people had access to if they wanted to get the most out of LinkedIn company pages. So, yeah, thanks for having me to talk about it.
Sure. And I'll try to give the 30-second catch up for people who have not been on LinkedIn in a while. I think all of us are past the ancient history days of LinkedIn simply being a resume posting site. They came along, and you detail in your book how they added a feed, which is a staple of every social network. But
Absolutely.
that feed was originally, and most people today still think of the feed as something that is their personal. It stems from their profile. It has their mugshot in it, and it's what they want to talk about, and then comments back. There is an entirely different entity that can do the feeds, correct?
Absolutely, company pages. And this is where you can do lots of similar things with some additional functionality over on your company page. So, a company page has lots of similar features to a personal profile, but it's really important that we make sure that we build a company brand, not just a personal brand. And this is what the book goes into.
Perfect. And so there's a couple of things that I want to clarify, and I'll just say, in the main, I want to cover these because um, I myself have noticed that there are exceptions, and it gets my head all confused. But in the main, a personal profile is meant to look at other things, like and comment on them, and engage with other people, right? A company page post, so it'll follow the same format as a personal post, but in the main, a company page post is something that people are supposed to engage, amplify, like all of that stuff, right? It's not as much meant to have that two-way interaction that a person and a person have, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's more of a destination than, a conversation. But what we're seeing is that it's actually changing. So, company pages, my prediction for 2022 is that they're going to be built around building communities. So, how do you get your customers talking about your business for free? Like, that's the ultimate goal, to get other people talking about your business for free. So, you get that, them having conversations to their network, promoting your business. And so the company page, whilst the content is very similar, they do work a little bit different. So you're absolutely right on that front.
And here we are recording this at the end of 2021. You point out that there wasn't a whole lot to say about company pages in the 20 teens, and that it changed drastically at the beginning of COVID. And I bet you're going to tell me that this community word you used has come to the fore in this. Can you just take us through what really has happened there?
No doubt that COVID had a huge impact on company pages. And what we saw was that a lot of companies took their spend off other platforms and put it over onto LinkedIn. So we're talking about paid advertising strategies.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean for company pages? You have to have a company page to be able to run paid ad strategies. So that's number one. Number two, because all of the money came across onto the platform, guess what LinkedIn are doing? Making company pages more attractive so that they can bring more companies to the platform to do more paid strategies. So at the beginning of this year, I literally was, doing a bit of an analysis of what was happening on the platform. I'd been using it for 8 years as, more a social selling tool working for other people. But when I set up my own business, I was having a look around and I realized that we had all these businesses coming onto the platform. We're nudging 60 million at this stage. And what I looked around and went, everybody's talking about profiles, everybody's talking about personal branding. What about the companies? There's all this ad spend going on here. Some of it is just wasted money. I could see it just watching from a distance, just going, whoa, like you're new to the platform. I could tell because they had like 50 followers. They were like, literally just on there and spending money like no one's business. And so when I looked around, I realized that LinkedIn just kept adding more and more features as well, because they were getting money for this. And we've seen that all year. The number of features that have come out on company pages has just been crazy. And I'm part of a products advisory council for small businesses to the LinkedIn pages team. And I know that there's lots more coming because I'm in the processes of testing them in the background. So
Of course.
2022 is going to be super exciting.
So, on that notion of it being paid ads, so a thing that you said there, I want to just underline: you must have a company page to do sponsored posts and other types of ads, and the uh, it's coming from the brand, right? Now, that's the kind of, you have to set it up and get that started, but I don't think we want to leave people with the impression that it's like an empty glass when you begin it. There's actually, I'd say the glass is half full. I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
Me too.
Uh, but a simple thing such as, and most people like this, LinkedIn will notice when you make your company page, and for every person out there who works and their company that they list working for is your company, they're automatically aggregated with your company page, right?
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing that I say to people is if you've got new employees that are starting, or even just checking your existing employees, if you can encourage them to go back and update their work experience section on their personal profile, they automatically become followers of the page. Now, we're also seeing that LinkedIn's introduced other features which almost act like an intranet, where it's just private to your employees. It's called the My Company tab, where you can
Mm-hmm.
actually help your employees to put content out by creating it for them, and so that they can share it to their own personal networks. So everything that I talk about here today is not company pages in in place of personal profiles or personal branding. It's added into that combination. So the power comes from the synergies between the two. So, don't ignore one. Use the profile to help build up your company page, use the company page to help build up your people.
Good point. And we're speaking mainly to marketers. And I think marketers in this context are at the epicenter. Most places I know, they are the ones who have the admin keys to the company page.
That's right. And one of the tricks with company pages is they actually normally have three masters. So you've got the marketing team who wants to run the content and the, lead generation kind of things. You've also got the HR team who's trying to use it to attract top talent. That's one of the other features of a company page or the reasons that you need one. And then you've also got the sales team. So social selling, reasonably new, last few years, the digital buyer is all online. We can't get out and do customer visits as easily as what we could. I come from 20 years of selling, loved being an account manager out face-to-face visits, trade shows, exhibitions, all those kind of things. They're out the window. So the sales team are now
Yes.
going, we want a part of this as well. So it's an interesting dynamic on company pages that it actually serves all three. And I think that's, really cool.
Yeah. And you've highlighted, I mean, on each of those three, if we dissect LinkedIn as a company here for a moment, uh, those are all floor level parts of the LinkedIn company page. Like they're all resident in the company page, but each of them have their own higher level products. Sales, for example, has Sales Navigator. The recruiting, as you said, there's a separate component, and then on the marketing side, it's Campaign Manager. So we're seeing in the company page the embodiment of all the things that LinkedIn wants. And I don't know about how you feel about this, but when you said that features are accruing to things like a company page and they're fueled by revenue, some people, don't like that. But I take a completely contrary view and I say, well, they have developers, and those developers like to eat. So it's you want to lean into the parts of LinkedIn where you see them making revenue because you know that they will continue to improve those things.
Yeah, and because we're at the beginning of that journey, I think realistically on the platform, when I looked at it, I went, HR's been around and, the
Since day one.
solution,
Yeah.
nearly 20 years, I think it is now. So
Yeah.
that's done and dusted. Like we know it exists and there's probably other competitive platforms out there that there's a bit of competition. Sales Navigator, pretty unique, but again, been around for quite a while. So where's the new cash cow come from? And that's, over here in company pages. Now, and we're seeing really the types of strategies that they're using. They're making it easier for people who have to be page administrators to actually do their job. And, we're seeing new analytics and things pop through. We're also, starting to see new functionality. So, it's just where the money is and where the features are. And so, people say to me, if I'm a small business and I'm not going to be using paid strategies, is a company page right for me and my
Hmm.
business? And my answer to you is yes, this is the only place I know where if you don't pay anything, it's an even platform with the biggest companies in the world. So if you have a look, if you take Netflix company page as an example, they've got about 8 million followers, thereabouts. Um, I don't even know how many employees spread all over the world, instant brand recognition. They get the same banner size, they get the same logo size, they get the same number of headers, the same number of characters. We can post as many times for free. It's an even playing field for the most part, whether I have one employee as a solopreneur or the biggest companies in the world. So if you can find me another platform where as a B2B marketer, I get that opportunity whilst I build things in the background. This is a
Yes.
journey. This success doesn't come overnight. So if you can find another platform that does it, please let me know. I'm all ears.
Yeah, but as you say, and you can progress to paying for it, but it's a freemium model. You can start out simply on free, and if you're not getting payback on the effort that you're providing, well, marketers are used to that in many different areas, and we know to move on and just keep experimenting.
One of my favorite features that comes for free is because LinkedIn is, again, voted the world's most trusted platform in this, in social media, is that by setting up a company page, you automatically piggyback on their reputation. So if I jump into Google and Google my business name, so Good
Yeah.
Trading Co., I'll most likely come up in the first page of results, right at the top as my LinkedIn result. And so if you're a small business and you don't have money to be paying for SEO or the like, then you can actually jump onto the back of LinkedIn's reputation and find access to first page results on Google. And again, it's free to set up a company page. It takes around, 20 minutes maximum. Why not? There is no why not.
Yeah, and you walk through that step by step in the book, and it does a good job of outlining that. Let's talk about the content that you can put on, because uh, first off, every social platform ought to be treated on its own. That's, I think, just a standard disclaimer, and most of our listeners know that. In the LinkedIn sense, there are going to be things that you want to choose early on, such as, are you going to put a post out, or are you going to put an article out, or you've highlighted that there are documents that you can put out. So, and some of those are quite new. Take us through what our thinking process should be as we look at these choices.
Always start with what's your business goals. We don't jump onto the platform and start creating content if we don't know where we're heading. So, first of all, take a moment and set up, where are you trying to head with this? Then the next step is, who are we trying to do it for? So understand who your ideal client is. Once you've got those two things sorted, then we jump onto the platform. And you're right, there is so many different types of content that we can use on a company page, even articles of, probably the most recent feature. They've only been on company pages for about 4 or 5 months, I think it is now.
And the
And
really quick distinction is that a post has a medium character limit, and an article can be much longer.
exactly. So you've got shorter long form options as far as that goes. And so what we're actually seeing is LinkedIn did a lot of research with the Edelman report, and they actually came back and said the future of company pages content centered around long form thought leadership. So that's where articles fall into this. So not articles that are written for SEO purposes that you stuff them full of keywords, but the genuine value and thought leadership type articles that are unique, that I can't find anywhere else. It's your company's unique perspective based on your industry expertise. And so we're really seeing a big change with that on company pages. So long form obviously takes a lot more effort. So, look at ways to repurpose that into shorter posts. I'm all about repurposing. Trying to, keep up with the amount of content across platforms can be difficult. So, if you start with a long form and then repurpose it into shorter posts, that can help. The research that LinkedIn put out also said that if you rotate through the different styles of content that you can put out, whether it's polls, documents, articles, short posts, video, even, then you attract a wider audience. So we're all different human beings. The marketers out there know that, appeal to those wide variety of tastes. So you'll find your own unique style for your company, but ultimately, if you rotate through the different types, you will have better performance in the longer term.
Hmm. The fact that they're gravitating to longer ones, I think that that's going to make LinkedIn a rather separate place. At least it's going to occupy a separate place in the visitor's mind, where they are interested to see if the company truly has authority, gravitas in their field. And I, as a marketer, would want to shy away from clickbaity, you
Mm.
know, uh, give you two lines and then say, oh, but if you want more, you have to give me your email and blood type and name of your firstborn, right?
And then
So,
spam.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. So for me personally, it's about quality over quantity. They have made that abundantly clear that it's all about the quality of what you're putting out there.
And they even measure that, correct? I mean, we're going to get into the distribution here in a moment, but there have been actually academic papers that LinkedIn authors and developers have put out talking about how they measure how long you're looking.
Yeah, so dwell time is one of the things that they take a look at with the algorithm. So we know how long you spend on a post does make a difference. So quite often people will talk about long form posts. So we're talking, you've got up to 3,000 characters. That's a lot of words when you start to type them. I did a couple of posts back when that feature got launched, and I feel like you just go on and on and on, and nobody's listening at the end. You're talking to yourself. So whilst it's there, it doesn't always mean it's good to use it. Interestingly enough, I read just last week in the LinkedIn marketing blog that they're actually suggesting that what performs best, because we've got a huge amount of millennials and like the younger generations on LinkedIn now, much to a lot of people's surprise, it's almost like 60 or 70% of between 25 and 34. So
Wow.
the thing that it's for the older generations like me, like Gen X and beyond, is not actually the case on the platform, and they like shorter content. So LinkedIn recommended in this particular blog 150 characters with an external link and an image. Now, that goes against most of the actual currently, I guess, professed knowledge of the platform and algorithms that's out there amongst my peers. So I'm playing around with that. So it's like, get to the point. If I want to find out more, here's a link. You can go and read it. And here's an image if you just want to look at it. So I've been playing around with that with some success. It's hard to write a post in 150 characters. It's basically 1 to 2 sentences. So it's kind of old school Twitter style, I think, back before they increased characters. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the new year. The balance between grab my attention or keep my attention.
Sounds like you're encouraging a fair bit of variety, and I guess we should be watching our analytics to see how well it engages.
Yeah, and give things time. One of the, key things that we raise in the book is that we want people, when you start out on a company page, you won't know anything if you're just starting from zero today. You go away and set up your page today. 6 to 12 months minimum is where we'll start to
Hmm.
see anything happen. It will take you that much time to build a community and build your followers and start to play around with the content that works with your unique followers. So whilst we can't tell a prescriptive, go and do this, you will get this result, you'll need to pay attention to what works with the analytics, exactly what you just said there.
Yeah, and it takes some determination internally. I mean, I've worked with some clients where they've done the experimentation. They've spent, let's say, a quarter where they took, well, I know one company that started with their first quarter with just posting their press releases on their company page. It's been known to happen. Um, but then they
Often.
progressed. Yeah, right. But then they progressed to, testing out, okay, well, they would do short video summaries of a application that they are, working. Then they'll move to, let's say, some of those longer term thought pieces. So it is something that takes time to do. Uh, let's talk for a second about how the algorithm is treating all that information and what we know, the limited amount that we know of who's seeing it, how long after the post is put up that it can be seen. I'll just remind everybody, LinkedIn, like every platform out there, is no longer doing pure chronology, reverse chronological. It is absolutely uh, moving items around in a
Mhm.
consumer's feed, for their own purposes. But what do we know about what it's doing?
Look, what we're seeing, there's definitely differences between how things work on company pages and how they'll work on your profile. So, for anyone that's going to try and measure one versus the other, it's like apples and oranges. So, you
Okay.
will not get as many views, you will not get as much engagement. You won't. Like, the simple answer is you will not on your company page get as much as what you do over on your personal profile for the majority of, companies. But what we find is it's a destination where you build up things over time. And we find even more that there's observers. And the reason I know this is because I manage enough company pages and been creating content for long enough that what actually happens is people reach out to the sales team and say, I saw you post. But when we go back and have a look, there's no engagement at all, but I feel like they store it in their memory banks. They may not necessarily have a need then, but by being top of mind when it does come up, that it's there. Also, as I said before, it's like a destination. So when you end up at a company page, it's normally because you're researching a buy. So you want to find out more information about the company. And so you go and do a bit of a deep dive all at once. And so what we find is this is why on a company page, you've got unique tabs that you can go and filter things out much easier. So things like the events tab, the video tab is my favorite. It's almost like your own mini YouTube channel that sits over on your company page. So, if you're creating content for that, think about how to's, think about, quick tips, how, demonstration videos, those work really well on that video tab so that when I come and research, you've already answered all of my top 10 questions with short videos. So, there's lots of ways that you can go and research easily in one place, which is great. So,
Okay, that's helpful because it's we're trying to emphasize the type of content that we can have. Now, there is, even before we look at doing any paid sponsorship of posts, there is a way that we can affect the number that LinkedIn is going to show it to, and that is through followers. And if we're an admin, we get actually some not control, but we get a helping hand with who we could invite to follow the page, right?
yeah, so think about your company page as building a niche community. So each month, LinkedIn will give you 100 invite credits. We're actually seeing some people have got a bonus 100 or 200 this month. I haven't got them yet. I'm a bit jealous. But we're seeing, I hope that that rolls out further because when you use those invite credits, as people accept, you get a credit back again to resend out to somebody else. They
Mm-hmm.
expire at the end of every month. And then, so what happens is when you go through the process, you can actually use filters which are by geography or industry or job types or university, I think is the last one. And then so you can really narrow in on who it is that you're targeting. So if your company only works in a particular geography, then you can filter your connections by that geography as well. So you're targeting the right people. So we're not going, again, this is all about quality over quantity. The
Yeah, this
minimum
is not
number,
vanity, right? I'm not asking my
no,
relatives and neighbors because yes,
no.
they'll say yes, but then I'm going to end up with an audience that is not a composite of my actual buying audience.
Absolutely. We're targeting around 500 to 1,000. So at around 500 takes about 6 or so months. That is when you've started to do enough practice content to realize what works. You've got enough numbers to support that. And then we start to see that that's around the right amount to start the community build. So it's only 500. So it's
Right.
not
That's
10,000.
sure. And that's important, but it also presupposes, and we need to think about this as we set up our admins, we ought to have people who have a fairly large connection network on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and you have to help your team. And one of the ways, if you don't, your page admin person doesn't have a lot of connections, because quite often company page administration can end up with all kinds of different people in the business who may not be customer facing or may not have been in the industry for a long time. And so, how you get around that is you can actually appoint multiple page administrators. So you can even do this temporarily. And what we're seeing is
Oh,
that you
okay.
could invite other people. So this month we're going to invite Dave from sales. Next month we're going to invite Sally from marketing, and then we'll just keep moving around so that you can leverage off other people's connections. So and then once they've done that, you could then remove them as the administrator, and then they carry on with what they were doing. So that's a way that you can get around that, but building up your personal connections is always going to be a part of the strategy as well.
So when we're at, let's say, 500, a couple of new things come into play. I think you even kind of suggested as a magic number. The things that I want to focus on is if we serve more than one segment, and they're like very easy to tell apart. I know that at that 300 to 500 range, we are given things like a target audience. Now, I understand it has a really niche usage and you discourage it, but just give me an example of like what other things become possible when we're at that 500 or maybe closer to 1,000 range, and what other tabs on the company page platform we can and should start to use.
So, for the most part, you're going to have all the features available to you at the beginning besides the targeted audience. So, it's
Hmm.
based around you need a targeted, when you use the filters, it needs to have at least 300 end up in that. So, if you are niching down from not all of your company page followers, just particular industries and bits, you don't reach that 300 until you've got much bigger numbers.
Yeah.
So, for most people, they're not going to use that, for quite a while, probably the first few years, unless you've got 1,000 employees and then all of a sudden they come on and help. It
Hmm.
really does take time. So if you do this, like I said, all the other features that what happens at that magic number is more that you've got people in a community that can engage with your content, so it shows up in their networks and you can attract people organically. So
Ah,
rather than having to invite them, you're actually now got a community that is talking about your page. Maybe in even just doing comment here or there will help, because we know that back in the feed, some people will get notified, hey, Michelle's just commented on Good Trading Co's page, so you'll get notified around things like that.
sure. Okay. So the algorithm is kind of saying the water cooler's over here, and people are
Yes.
now starting to expect, as long as you're putting content out regularly, that you are. So I see the numbers start to move in a virtuous circle for you.
Yeah, and the more it's one of those things, it's like, I talk about it, it's like the dance floor at the wedding, it
Right.
sits there
Right.
empty,
Until
even though
that
the
first.
music's great, and
Yeah.
it sits there until the music's great and everybody loves it and there's space to, go and dance. But until the first person gets up, no one else will follow. And so
Yeah.
that's the kind of analogy that I use to let people know, look, it will take time. You will be sitting there for probably the first 3 or 4 months going, that Michelle, she's crazy. Like, I have been doing this, I'm getting crickets, nothing is going on, like, I give up. And that
Yeah.
happens regularly. Those that just keep going and trust in the system and trust that quality will, shine in the end, keep doing the right things, keep being of service and adding value to your audience. It will pay off. And it's like one of those things. Once the first one goes, it's like dominoes. But you will never, again, it will never be the same number of views and likes and comments that you get on your personal profiles. So if you need a dopamine hit, head over
Go
there.
do
This
it
is all
there.
about business. This is all about business. And, it's not necessarily, oh, wow, I'm a super fan,
Well,
but I'm observing.
and they're not mutually exclusive. We're living in an age where the face of a brand, are the main people. Gone are the days of a spokesperson. So, that can work as well, and they can work in synchrony with each other.
That's my absolute advice. The more that you can bounce each other, then the better the results. And so you should be using your company page to build up your employees just as much. It's not their job just to be your company page advocates. It's your job as the page owner to make sure that you build up your employees. Like, you can imagine that if you take your, sales reps who are out on the road representing the company, and you talk about their industry expertise and get their opinions on things and really build them up as a thought leader and go-to person, then when they're out face to face or doing other methods to attract business, it makes their life easier as well, because they're already set up for success. So don't forget, it's a two-way street. So we're connecting brand to human and human to brand.
Yes, and don't minimize the effort that it takes to get those employees on board as advocates. If that is undernourished, I find it doesn't work. And this is something that I have a bone to pick with LinkedIn. They have probably dragged their heels on giving an admin person a little bit better control over, for example, saying if someone is an employee of their company or not. There's very little faculty there right now to work from the admin side. You basically have to go to that sales rep on the road with an email and say, our company is spelt this way, please put it
Yeah.
in like that so that it's connected. Right.
Yep.
So more to do there, but I think we have things we can get started on to bring our employees into the fold. Right.
Yeah, and this is the thing. There's definitely a long way to go with the functionality on the page. And, I know the LinkedIn team, when I have conversations with them, the things that they've got in the pipeline, I'm super excited about. I wish I could tell
Mm.
your audience, but I can't. But it will make a difference to both employees, both to the marketing team, and anyone that's responsible for the social media manager. I love that part of the reason that I got into company pages in the beginning was that you can outsource it to a third party without breaking the terms and conditions of LinkedIn. So,
The
you
admin
know,
setup, in fact, that's baked right in, isn't it?
Absolutely. So you have the options at setting different levels of access for different people. So third party analytics or third party content creators or super admins that can do everything. So it really is starting to see a setup that makes life easier to get more out of the page. And I'm, like I said, I feel like we're at the beginning of this journey and we're seeing LinkedIn just put so much into it that it's going to be exciting when we get another 12 months worth of features to really make these, more fun to play with. So I'm excited.
One thing I learned in the book, and I hadn't seen it anywhere else, was LinkedIn's motto. According to you, it's "Do business where business is done." And there's nowhere else that I can think. I mean, that's lofty, right? But there's nowhere else I can think of that better resembles that than events. And this is, to me, this is a gutsy thing for them to do. I've noticed that we began with allowing people to interact, messages, right? And messages were thankfully a nice way to democratize the ability. If people remember from way back, you could only use in mails, but messages kind of got very fluid, and video through message started to come out. Now they're taking that to the next step, I think, where you can have a shared event and it can actually be facilitated by the company page. Have I got that right?
LinkedIn Lives are my favorite part of company pages at this point in time. Like, and you can do it on your personal profile, but when they introduce them onto like the lives onto company pages, sorry, then what I've actually found is they have created new live events, which actually make it easier for you to help promote to your followers and in the feed and show up in different places. LinkedIn have gone out and, the research that I've done is basically they've got two focuses for the coming year. It's going to be long form articles and LinkedIn Lives. And I'm excited because one of the things that becomes clumsy on the platform as we speak is that if you try and host on Zoom or other platforms like that, you get lost in the links and the registration process as soon as you've got
Yes.
try to
You
do a
go off.
combination.
Yeah, you go
You
off
go
into
off
the
the
ether
platform.
and you never come back.
You're
Yes.
on your own. You're on your own. It doesn't work. So the answer to that is LinkedIn actually has to really up their game on the functionality of lives, and we're seeing that come through. I think that what they'll do is they'll end up having paid events through the platform
Hmm.
for companies, because that's the thing that makes most sense. If you've built up your followers, you've built your community, they're all on the platform, why wouldn't LinkedIn want to make the money that some of these other places, and we've seen some of the investments in companies that they've purchased align with this kind of thought.
And we see that platforms like Facebook do this well. So LinkedIn is, I'm sure, taking notice. When it comes to the things that we can do, I mean, that's a perfect blending of that employee and company brand, right? I mean, because you can't put a pull-up banner on a live event. You have to actually have a person there. But this is that, as you said, that place where they are trying to be the facilitator of people connecting with people for doing business.
Yeah, and at this stage, there is no real threat to LinkedIn as a platform for B2B marketers. It is the number one go to. We're pushing 800 million people on the platform. We know people are here to do business, especially in the B2B space. And, that's moving out into B2C just as much. And, with that, what we're now seeing is that, well, if you're here, how can we, do business while we're on the platform? So the LinkedIn marketplace is one way that they're doing that. Company pages, like I said, I think we'll see paid events and other things come through because there is no real threat coming from any other platform at this point.
That, and to anyone who's a skeptic, I would say most of these features that Michelle is describing are merely LinkedIn taking one piece of function or data that they already have and looking at another function that they already have and putting them together. And,
Yeah,
and, and they're very close. They're
it's
already
joining.
very close.
It's joining the ecosystem. How do you leverage one to get the other to work even better? So if, you look at it and go, if you're building your community using your company page, then what features do I need? Okay, well, some people really enjoy, a video content, for instance. So the video tab is amazing. And any live event that you do automatically gets stored on this video tab for future reference. So you don't have to send people off to YouTube. You don't have to send them to Vimeo or other platforms.
Hmm.
It's an all-in-one, a one-stop shop. And so that's where I think, as soon as you're directing people off onto other platforms, you risk losing them. So the more that you can keep them in the one place and finding all the information that they need, it's that shiny light. Oh, I go into YouTube. Oh, YouTube recommended this other company's, how-to video. Maybe I'll go and have a look at that one. And then all of a sudden they're
Yeah.
lost. So if
Squirrel.
you can keep them on platform, that's going to be a win.
For B2B companies, many of them might say, but we have multiple product families. We have different target sectors that we are trying to reach, all with different messaging and positioning. Can a company page possibly accommodate those things?
It gets tricky. Okay. So I'm not going to lie about that one. So for instance, I come from a sales background in the chemical industry. So as a distributor of different chemicals, we targeted, say, the beauty industry, which I worked in. It might have been the food industry, commercial cleaning, all kinds of different industries, but we were one company. So how do you handle that? So LinkedIn has things like showcase pages where you can actually have them sit under the umbrella of your company. And for some, being able to divide it up in this example to the beauty, to the food, so that you can make sure you build little niche audiences that are only interested in your content. And the easiest way for me to use an example for that again is with Netflix. When I jump on there and I want to watch a rom-com, no judgment, and it's showing me horror content, I'm like thinking, what are you doing this for? And it's the same on LinkedIn. If you've got a company page
Right.
and I'm the beauty customer, and
Right.
I go on there and you're showing me food stuff, I'm like, I'm changing the channel. You guys don't give me what I want. So being able to separate it out is good. There's some limitations that come with that. And sometimes it might be a better option to have multiple company pages that are linked together. But ultimately, just knowing that you can have different flexibilities to achieve your goal and keep it separate, because there are, you just want to, if you're into one particular area, you don't want to listen to the noise of everything else. So there's definitely ways that you can work around that.
Yeah. And I would just encourage a company to look at what is there. They've also provisioned subsidiary pages and acquisition pages. So if it can mold against your org chart in a way that now you do raise a caution. You say each one of these is going to need content, and you better be ready. You can't just create them willy nilly because they're going to sit there and languish if you don't
Yeah,
put
it's,
content on.
the more, pages that you create, that's more communities you need to build, that's more content that you need to put out, and community management, so responding to any likes, comments, questions. So don't think that that's the easy answer. The more pages, the more work. So it's not right for every business. If you're a smaller business, and I'm talking less than 50 employees, just your company page is fine, and rotate your content. It's going to be a strategy that you can keep going consistently, which is going to be more important in the long run. So, this is why it's never a one size fits all. It's, as I said at the beginning, start with your goals, and then have a look at, like, what are the resources that you have to put into this. Most
Yeah.
business owners are stretched as it is, most resources are
Yeah.
stretched. So you don't want to add something that is just going to tip people over the edge, and then, it will fall off.
Yeah, or you go frantic for a while and quit. So slow and steady wins the race. Another area, and this is new, that's trying to get more of this engagement is newsletters, right?
That's right. So newsletters we currently only see over on personal profiles, and they're just basically an article that you can have subscribers. Article formats are long form that you can add in. All kinds of rich text and rich media, which is great. So you can have links to external websites. You can embed videos, so you can really put pictures in there. So all kinds of fun things. So we don't have them on company pages yet, but I'm pretty confident that at some point they'll roll out.
And that's, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, given that advertising sits on the company page, that they will need to be clear with us on if they're going to put a cap on who will be receiving a newsletter, just like who does receive a post in your feed. I think right now it kind of sits around the 3% mark is where they write out
In
of
the
your
feed,
total audience.
that's right. So in the feed, you see that when you do a post, it goes, yeah, roughly to, as minimum as 3 to 10% are kind of the numbers that get thrown around. But with a newsletter, it's completely different. Your whole audience all of your connections get notified, and then they can choose to subscribe. And then when you do something, it goes out to all of them, to the best of my knowledge. So as far as reach goes, it's pretty amazing from that perspective. But if it's not of value, that unsubscribe button comes just as quickly. And so what we saw was when they rolled out newsletters for anyone that has creator mode, everyone got the access on the same day. So everyone went and created a newsletter. And then so what happened was we all got bombarded and went, whoa, like go away newsletters. Like, whoa, what is going on here? So we saw a bit of pushback. It seems to have quietened down now because that immediate rush has stopped. So what we're going to see now is hopefully we can get some out. So I'm thinking about putting mine out soon because I'm like, yeah, I think the coast is clear. I think that, annoying part has actually dropped off, but it'll be awesome to see if it comes into company pages. It's something I put in the book that I think it will happen. So fingers crossed that that prediction comes right. It'll be interesting to see at the end of next year what I got right. It was the hardest chapter in the book to write. I put it off for weeks because I was like, I've got to
I'm
put it
sure.
out there. It's out there on print now. It's not even a post, it's in print. It's there for the world to see. So keep your fingers crossed for me.
Well, and this is one thing that, if we've learned anything from being on LinkedIn, that they're changing up what the platform does. They will, as other major platforms do, um, retrench if a particular feature is being overused, too much of a bandwagon effect, or if it's being completely ignored. So,
Yeah.
I think we have to be ready to expect a little bit of the unexpected. The standard line that most people say at this point is, be careful and acknowledge that you're building your house on someone else's land, right?
It's Yeah, it's rented space at the end of the day, and it can change. And we saw that with, for instance, LinkedIn Stories just disappeared,
Right.
halfway through the year. And
Came
so
and went.
I know, and I was disappointed because I was just getting used to it, and I miss it because I think there's a place for it. I hope it comes back in a different format. I don't think short form videos or that ephemeral content will disappear forever. I just think that they've gone back to the drawing board and thought, how can we, do this better? So I don't think it will disappear entirely, and I'm excited to see what comes back because I miss them. But yeah, it can happen at any time.
Yeah.
Features come in, features disappear, and the algorithm changes multiple times a year, so that if things like pods, they do everything that they can to try and overcome that kind of people trying to game the system. LinkedIn knows that you're trying to game the system, so it's going to know what you're up to, and then come back and really try and make it so it's a fair platform for all of us, and that trust factor remains. Quite often people will have a go at LinkedIn and say that not very innovative, or they're slow to do changes, or the technology is not maybe as fun and cool as you can find on other platforms. But it stood the test of time, and it's still growing. And we come here because it's safe. We don't get spammed for the most part. We don't have trolls as a problem for the most part. I think they do an amazing job. So be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and it's a matter of perspective. This is like when we talk about, people who like to drive fast and they consider, people who drive slower than them to be morons. LinkedIn, to a person who is used to staying on the bleeding edge of social networks or paid social advertising, will look and see the tortoise, right, in the race. That's LinkedIn. LinkedIn's happy to be in that position, but I guess to your point that it knows its pacing, and it is bringing out features, maybe not at that breakneck speed, but for people who maybe are not at the bleeding edge, maybe who people have been completely ignoring this space. The message to them is there's still time. You can get the real estate that you could be given on LinkedIn here in 2022 or beyond, and you haven't missed it. You're still able to partake and build this just like everybody else. As you said, it's flat.
Absolutely. And this is the amazing part. I mean, I've been using it for 8 years now. And when I look at it, it was the usual story. I jumped on 8 years ago to get a job, got said job, turned up, and then all of a sudden they didn't have a marketing department. There was nowhere that my customers could find out what I sold. And then so I started to create content just as a way of reaching my audience for free, because that was the, really important part to my manager
It's
at the time.
probably what the budget was too.
Must be free, Michelle. I am not, you know. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting, because for me, it was as simple as I've got, around 80 clients spread all over Sydney and interstate. And we've got 10,000 products, and we've got no marketing team, nothing on a website, no catalog. How do you expect me to do this? So it was a blessing, because as it turns out, 8 years later, I got really good at creating content, building audiences, and now do it for other people. So thank you to my former bosses for
Hmm.
sending me down this path. But this is why I love it. It's not an uncommon story still in 2021, heading into 22, that there are a lot of business out there that are digitally invisible, and it's just not an option anymore. You can't ignore it, because COVID even, brought everything
Right,
forward at a light speed,
right.
that you just can't do it anymore. You can't just keep fading away into the background, because people that get good at digital marketing are going to just own the space, and you'll be left behind.
No, I couldn't say it any better. It's got, I think, something for everyone. And the book, in its own way, on the company page score, has something for everyone, beginner, intermediate, or advanced. And I just wanted to finish by asking Michelle, where can they find out more about this book, about you, your co author, Linaire Johnson? Where can they go?
LinkedIn is the obvious answer. So you'll find us both on LinkedIn. We live, breathe, and eat, sleep a whole lot on there. So please do come and connect with us. There's a company page for Business Gold, the book. So if you remember that one, if it's easier, or Michelle J. Raymond or Linaire Johnston. So we'd love to connect with people. We love helping people. Our mission was to help as many, business owners get the most out of company pages. As I said, it was a world first. No one else had written a book on this particular topic. So there's now a resource. And what we found is the reluctance of people to create a company page was actually a lack of information on why and how they should do it. So the book is a short read. There's no fluff. It is straight to the point, practical tips. And that's the way that we wanted it. We didn't want you to spend 10 hours reading a book when you could spend 2 hours and actually go and spend the other 8 implementing what we've shared. So thank you for your support and letting me, talk about Business Gold today.
Yeah, very glad to do it. And to the listener, thank you for listening. I hope that you come away thinking about company pages differently. And if you know someone who works or does marketing at a company that does not have a company page, or where it's completely undernourished, I would consider that you want to send them this episode, and maybe they'll pick up a copy of the book and find out more about how they can do it. And I hope that you reboot your one part of your funnel today because of something that you heard, so you can make it even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter at Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.